First of all, Dana, thank you for talking with Mega Noticias. And welcome to Chile, by the way.
Thank you.
Well, the statistics are concerning because million meals wasted each day, while 800 million people are hungry. Why is that happening and what are we doing wrong?
Oh, well, it's such a big problem that it's different, what's happening is different on farms than it is in restaurants. But in general, I think we're just not valuing food for what it's really worth, right? In a lot of places, food is not that expensive when you compare it to rent or what labor costs. And so many businesses don't prioritize the food.
An average person, I was reading, wasted 79 kilograms of food each year. How can we revert this?
It's really common sense steps in our own lives, and it's about managing our food better. So first, really being careful to shop for what you need that week and be careful not to overbuy your food. I think second, freezing food if you don't think you're going to eat it in time. And then this phrase I learned while I was in Chile, lumami, but which I guess is used on Thursdays to really talk about using up the food from lunes, martes, miércoles. I love that because it's about a mindset of making sure that you're using everything before you go back to the store.
It's about changing our behaviors, right?
It really is, yeah. And even a small amount helps so much. You don't have to be perfect. I think if you can waste a little bit less today, that's a little bit less that goes to the landfill tomorrow and less greenhouse gases that it will emit in the future.
What has to change in the big picture, not only in our individual behaviors and not only in our houses, and how feasible are those solutions?
Yeah, I think they are feasible because we didn't used to waste this much. And so we know that businesses many years ago were wasting less. What we want to see businesses do is to use technology to predict demand better so they don't need to overbuy as much, to provide options in how much food they serve at a restaurant so that if you're not that hungry, you could maybe get a smaller portion. And also, there are some great tools for businesses to sell off products at the last minute that can really help them put the food to good use and also make a little bit of the money they would have made otherwise.
When it comes to policies, only 21 countries have included food loss and waste in their national climate plans. What about the rest?
Yeah, the rest have not. Some are considering it. We're still hoping that some of the countries do include food loss and waste in their climate plans. I think what's important about this is that now there will be funding available to help countries perform the actions in those climate plans. So we know that if food loss and waste can get into those plans, there will be more funding to fund some of the solutions.
And what about the methane emission that the waste of food expels? That's a whole theme.
Yeah, it really is. When food goes to the landfill, it rots there and it produces methane. And methane is a powerful greenhouse gas. And in fact, most of the methane that's coming from landfills is coming from food in those landfills. And so it's really important that we think about how do we get the food out of the landfill. And I know, in Chile there's been a legislation that was considered but not passed to ban food from landfills. And we are seeing that type of legislation in other places. We have it in California, we have it in Japan, in Ecuador. And so we know it's possible. And in those countries, they're building infrastructure to bring the food to a different place and usually to compost it and recycle it so that it can go back to the soil.
Okay. I was reading, I want you to tell me if it's true, that the food waste emissions of methane are in between 8 and 10% of the global emissions. In other words, nearly 5 more times than aviation sector emissions, right?
It's correct, and it's so surprising. Yeah.
So food methane, it's rotting in the landfills, you told me.
Yeah,
And can you please tell me those numbers?
Of methane?
Of methane, yeah.
Yeah.
That the food waste emissions are more...
Well, yes. Landfills are actually the third largest source of methane, and about 60% of the methane that's in landfills is coming from food.
And what the governments need to do then? If we have these numbers, we have this information, what is needed to do about the government, not only ourselves in our country, in our houses?
Well, like I said, the government can ban food from landfills. I know it sounds crazy at first, but it's actually quite possible, and it's happening in other countries. They can support food donation with more infrastructure that can help get extra food from the supermarkets or restaurants and get it to people, and also provide incentives, maybe tax benefits for that. And they can also set targets. In Europe, they are looking at a law that says you must reduce your waste. So that is an option too. Well, it's moving forward. It hasn't been passed yet, but I believe they think it will be.
Why do you think people don't understand the real impact of this?
You know, food waste is very dispersed, and so it just happens in little bits in a lot of places, and it's very hard for us to see. And I think because of that, it has really been kind of under the radar, and people don't notice it.
And are there also economic benefits of reducing the waste of food?
Absolutely. I mean, just in our homes, you know, anytime you don't waste food, that's other food you don't have to buy. I know in the U.S. I find it funny that people, when they're shopping, they're very careful about the price, and just 5 or 10 cents can have them choose one thing over another, but then they get home and they kind of forget about that, and they don't realize when they're throwing food out, they're really just throwing money out.
In Chile, there is a situation that it's very complicated. That is for the elder people, the elderly, the old ones, that our pensions are not good enough. So many times our elderly population have to choose or medicaments or drugs or food. So it's like an insecurity of food. How do you prevent that? How you manage that?
Yes, well, I think, social services are important for that, but certainly donated food can play a role in helping provide a little bit extra food to some of those people.
Now, people are hungry, not because there is no food in the planet, it is because we're not getting it to them?
That's right. We have more than enough food on this planet to feed every single person on it. And really, when people are hungry, it's a problem of poverty. It's not a problem of food supply.
In fact, 1 of 11 people suffer hunger in the world, right?
It's wild.
And a final message to our audience?
I think we face so many problems that are really big, and this is one that we all have control over, and we can do something about it now, and it can make an impact now. So I know for me, I feel like it's nice to be in control of something, and so I just encourage everyone to, even if it's just a small amount, pay some attention, and you'll naturally waste less food.
Okay. Dana Ganders, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
And have a good flight.
Thank you.
Thanks.